to cost you quite a bit of money to get that rolling. So
Right.
if right, and since you're putting on the 5 axis, I'm sure your hourly rate on that is pretty high considering to a standard 3 axis machine.
Right.
Um, so you want to maximize that, correct?
Yeah.
One reason why I'm asking some of these questions is because I'm gonna give you a small slide deck presentation. It won't take too long because we're gonna skip through most of it and we'll send it to you to digest later on, so that
All
when you
right.
sit down with your team and evaluate, there's something in place for you to discuss. And then also we have a spreadsheet that do an ROI based on the burden that you have with the employee, the time you plug in the numbers, it tells you if this investment is good for you or not, and it's going to help you whether it's our product or someone else's product. Because again, at the end of the day, you need to know if this investment is a good investment in lieu of, right?
Right. Well, and I think the biggest challenge that we have is finding, bodies to be at the machine and
For
actually load
sure.
parts. And so that was where the whole discussion came up with the robot. Is Matt Moel had stopped in and we were just talking about the inability to find good people to work,
Yeah.
and so that's how this all kind of developed.
And I think the ROI we're going to show you, Brian, it's going to really help you with that. Because it's just a joke, but out in California, we have this place called In-N-Out Burger, and they're paying $18 an hour plus scholarship, some scholarship for college and stuff like that. So there's no entry level anymore at a certain point. You know what I mean?
Right.
And nobody wants to smell like coolant or have chips on their shoe to snag up the carpet on their way home, right? You remember those days? So,
Yep. I still deal with those days.
yeah, I don't think we got any new entry into this area at all, to be honest. So
Yeah, it's tough.
it is a tough environment, and that's what we did. We did an RI based on uh we had two query. One is based on we called it the tender for a reason. This is an automation that is meant to do one thing, that is to mitigate the burden of having to find people. And so the ROI are based on that. It also, since it is human competing with automation or robot, it also give you the calculating the efficiency of the human versus robot. And you and I both know everyone gets near the water cooler or the coffee machine and say, Aaron Rodgers should have just passed the damn ball, right? And that's what we're competing against here. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, yeah, the tender doesn't have to take smoke breaks. It doesn't have to go to the bathroom. It doesn't have to go to lunch, and it'll work all night long if you wanted to.
Brian, this is the sad part, but we used to have a president that went outside and count how many cigarette butt was in the ashtray on the outdoor. And he say, Tom, how long does it take to smoke a cigarette? I say, well, depending on how much you drag, but I would say about 2 minutes. He count all those cigarette butt and he go, this is how much money I'm losing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy, but that's what we got going on here. So, but that's the way life works. So, do we have everybody here, Stephen?
Uh, yes.
All right. So Brian, I am going to do a presentation with y'all, and if you don't mind, I will steal the screen and share it with you guys. Let me know if you can see it.
Yep, got it.
Yeah. Okay, you can see this. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. Uh, See, look, I changed the title to H&M Automation. Looks so
Yep,
nice, right? Look
it
at
does.
that. So this is a slide deck that really cover a lot about the tending system. But we're just gonna go talk about the top 5 line, and just to cover the design of it, Brian. Uh, the system design, what is the baseline of what we normally sell the system for? What is usually a user baseline, which means, on the other side of the machine door, what does your involvement look like? And then we're going to do a little bit of ROI on the employment burden. Now, behind that, there's a lot more, which you can dive in a little bit later when you when you have more time. We'll send this over to you. It'll
All right.
talk about the lean tending concept, which I like a lot because I think most of your parts, um, when it from raw versus finish, you can't use a single end of arm tooling. You need to change it. So this is with the pallet, I think it's going to help you tremendously. So
Right.
that's what this area is all about. Okay. Our mean to deliver the pick and place environment. Okay. So this talk about the programmable rotating part towers. This talk about the HMI. This talk about how many shelf of work you can put in. The robot we're using currently. This talk about the electrical cabinet and mobility. And unlike other system out there, our shelf allow you to put 3 different type of pallet: a 6x6, 6x9, or 9x20. Now I cheat some of the part that you do. I would say that this 9x20 is desirable for some of the gang tooling you might do on some of these parts that are 2x2, right? So imagine a row of these on there. That'd be sweet. So that's something to think about, right?
Right.
And when you have a chance, take a look at our automation versus the marketplace, because you're not going to buy this for 6 months. This is going to be with you for 5, 6, 7, or 8 years, maybe even 10 years. So you want to have the possibility of this robot being able to do more than just what your shop are doing now. So this comes with a 25 kilogram. Simple math is about 50 pounds, whereas the marketplace tends to put you into a 10 kilogram or 20-pound capacity. Okay, now this is a payload at the end of the arm tooling. Of course, we got the end of arm tooling. We got all of the stuff that you have to deduct from, but still, it's still a pretty decent payload at around 40 pounds if you deduct the end of arm tooling, what have you. And you look at other system out there, they have a manual shelf, right? The robot come, pull the shelf open, pick the part, close the shelf, pull the next shelf. We have something like that, but this is a programmable rotating part tower. Okay, all automatic. We pick pallet and we place pallet. We do not pick raw material and we do not pick raw and try to place raw material. Okay. We give you 3 pallet size. Everybody else is around 8 inches dimension wise because they got to fit inside a shelf, right? A grid.
Right.
We use lean process. This is something that I don't know you're using now, but a lot of people in your kind of work environment, the biggest thing that kills them is setup time for 5 parts, 10, 15. So they like to use a pallet system so that they just call out the same datum point and the program, stick a part on the pallet, slap it on, and they go, right? Lean process is using pallet and 0 point. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We're applying that process, which most shop already are aware of, and we're just landing the hand. Other than beside the operator, we use a robot to put the pallet in. That's really narrowed down to, okay? Manual setup. HMI, once we go to the HMI, as we delve deeper into this, you're going to like this. The goal of high mix, low volume is allow you to change the parts in an HMI environment within 10 to 15 minutes. If it's longer than that, it's not worth doing because you spend all your time trying to teach the robot to do a job that you're supposed to flip over, right? Load capable during operation. So in other words, this surface is going to get run. These are the 3 surface. It's all accessible to you while it's running. Okay, you just be careful because there are some light curtains so that you don't stick your hand in while this thing trying to rotate. It'll freeze it to do that part, but it is accessible. Okay. Fencing, we use fencing. People always like floor scanner, but if you run at night and the big ass rat run by, it'll stop the operation or something happens.
Right.
So, while it sounds good, but the sensitivity, I mean, it comes a long way. Sometimes just a pure fencing is probably the best thing you can do for yourself. It's just easier. Let's put it that way.
Right.
But you can put floor scanner, doesn't matter. Now, I know in the last subject, we talked about redeployable and there were some subject on, can I move this within 2 or 3 hours in front of another machine? That's not going to happen. We use this word for a few reasons. Reason number 1, it is very easy to finance with the bank when the unit is stated as redeployable. The bank go, oh, you know what? Brian ain't paying. Let's pull that thing back, put it into another shop. We can loan him the money if that's the case, right? Because as long as they don't think it's a one-off to something that they can't resell it, they have a much better chance of financing anything if the word redeployable become a true statement, right?
Gotcha.
The Yeah, this will make life a lot easier. Redeployable isn't mean that we have wheels on these things. It means that there's anchor bolt that you can put in front of each, maybe a few more machine tool, and then you can convert it. This also are able to convert from milling to turning, but the conversion could mean that you have to change the end of arm tooling. You're going to change some hardware. It's not like, just move it there and it works for you, right?
Right.
So keep that in mind. It's redeployable with some pain. Maybe
Right.
not the firstborn, but enough to kind of make you think twice. So in a roundabout, when you look at the system that's available out there now, you got the left-hand side, which is a simple system, pick and place, raw material, come back every now and then, reload it and go, right? And then you got this high volume, high density, monumented right in front of your machine and, $500,000 plus type of system, right? This is inadequate. This is overkill. So when we built this, we felt like we can combine density and compactness within this system. Can you see that make sense? Right?
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
if I cut this square open, it looks like a beehive, right? Just like one of these guys,
Right.
right? So really that's what we're saying here. We are a beehive. It just it rotate to the end of arm rather than let the end of arm rotate, move to it. So the life of your robot can be longer. You don't have to worry about the wear and tear of the joint on reaching and weight capacity and inertia, all that stuff, because the parts get delivered in front of the robot. Does that make sense, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Stop me anytime you have any question, okay?
Yep.
Because I can talk for days, and that's why my wife wanted me to keep my job, just so she don't have to hear me. So this is a system baseline, and you can review this. It tells you, what's included in the system. Generally we use the Fanuc 25 ID at the moment. This one right here, okay? We also have other option in the future. We might rotate that into a Kawasaki environment just because the service we find is a little bit better in some way, okay? So this is the system baseline from Lindex Niken. This is what you buy as the baseline. You get a programmable rotating tower, you get a user-friendly HMI, you get a Fanuc 25 ID robot with a 50-pound plus payload, you get a shunt NSR end of arm tooling, you get 20 universal shelf system, which is these shelf here that you can see across. Okay, right. They are universal because it's the same shelf. You can put 6x6, 6x9, 9x20 without removing the shelf.
All right.
They already slotted for whatever you want to put on there. It's there. Okay. Industrial fencing, 3 panels. So because one of them is allow for you to enter, optional floor scanner, and then 1 year limited warranty. Okay. This is the user baseline. So know what is what's on the other side of the door. A typical customer would have to either talk to an OEM about auto door or approve market, approve aftermarket, a robot interface, which allow you to write your program and incorporate the logic between the machine and the robotic machine tool, right? It just makes life a lot easier in the interface. And then, of course, the work holding, right? And that varies, but we typically, because we use pallet, we want you to use this zero system. You can use a Jergen, you can do a shunt, whatever you want. But in your case, you have to use a shunt because of where I'm about to go next. Okay?
All right.
Is that clear on the user baseline?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now,
Real
let's
quick,
talk
Tom.
about.
Tom,
Yeah.
can you go back a slide? I think that you did some discovery with Mazak on the auto door and the robot interface. Is that true, Brian?
Yes. Yes. Sorry, I thought you were talking to him. Yeah. Yeah. They sent over their quote on the robot interface, and I guess I kind of want to talk to you guys, find out what you guys feel is better, using theirs or using yours, or is
Yeah.
that what your plan was, to use the Mazak robot interface?
Right. So basically that's how we communicate with the machine. So when you give the machine a command, the machine has the ability to do all the checks and balances and confirmations. And so it allows us to interface with the machine's, existing features and technology. So that we do need those interfaces.
Gotcha.
And then I think Matt said that you asked about the rotary union install on the
Yeah.
table.
Yeah, Mazak actually, when they sent over the engineering request, Mazak actually denied it.
All right,
Hmm.
which
So-
makes sense. I think that Steve Linehan's on the call. He's one of our product specialists for, or one of the things he's a product specialist for, I should say, is our rotary tables. And for us to do it, we have to take our entire rotary table apart, and we don't have a machine built around it. So I can understand Mazak saying, no. I can
Yeah.
understand that for sure. So, all right, thanks, Tom. I just wanted to figure out
Don't
what
worry.
Mazak had said.
So we know the challenge here is when it comes to the 0-point system, you need to activate air to unclamp, right?
Right.
Because it always clamp, just in case you lose air. So it's gonna need some injection of air to unclamp it, and then you load the pallet, and then it will clamp. Okay. So because you don't have a rotary joint, Schunk have built a system called Unleash, and what it is really you have a air receiver joint here, and then you have an air injector joint here, right? So that's really all they're doing. In the simplest way we're talking about is, they are putting in here a receiver for air, and they're gonna interject with the airline here at the end of arm tooling. And that's the modification we are going to make to improve your life because Mazak inability to put a rotary joint on there. So we have a solution. I think it's price adjustable to that solution. And we'll discuss that a little bit. And we'll walk you through this process together. And I believe, Stephen, I can show you a little bit here. So this is the end of arm tooling, and it has an air interject there. And it can interject air into two elements. Element one is the receiver so that this pallet can sit in there. Element number two is to open the vise so that this end of arm tooling can drop a workpiece in there. Okay. In our case, we don't need that. We only need this one.
Right.
Okay. Because our part is going to be manually clamped with a Mighty Bite or some kind of a Raptor or some things, right? So we
Right.
don't need this. We only need this single one with a receiver, and then this guy actuate that. Stephen, you want to steal my screen from this point?
We're not finished with the engineering on our side, just because we're waiting until we push through the final product. But this is basically a 2-jaw gripper, and we build can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. We build the air delivery into these two arms, and then it will go and interact with this manifold here. And so it'll charge the air, and then we port the air to the bottom of that NSE. And so our typical adapter looks like this. We'll have to build this into it. So we have two options. We haven't finished the engineering, but what we're hoping to see is that we build that into the actual base and plumb it into the bottom. There's some things that make it a little bit harder than what it sounds, but ultimately that's what we think the adapter will end up looking like. This guy won't be there. And then this end of arm would come in charge here.
So basically the robot will be in charge of not only placing the pallet, but feeding the air.
Correct. Yeah. And that's how so we'll charge it, it'll open. And then when we release, it leaves that charged system, right? It's all pressurized and held open. So now we can pull the pallet out, put the pallet away, grab the next one, put it in. And when we're done, we go down and we discharge that air, which allows it to clamp again.
Gotcha. I was wondering how you guys were going to come up with something.
I think they call it magic.
Yeah, that's what Matt said. I'm like, this ought to be interesting.
If you throw enough money at anything, there'll be a solution. It's just whether or not it's supportable or not.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, that's a lot easier than what I thought it was going to be. I thought we were going to be taking a table off the trunnion and trying to work magic elsewhere.
Yeah, that's where Stephen Morris is valuable to what we're trying to do, because he researched and frankly speaking, that's the excuse we're going to give you for how long it takes us to get back to you on this meeting, right? I mean, I know it's been a little bit of time in between, but we really took the challenge on and we did a lot of homework to try to find this. We kind of have a suspicious idea that Mazak will probably turn you down, only because we kind of know what typical OEM involvement is when it comes to something like that. They don't want to modify anything. And so we, kind of cheat it and give you a solution in case the answer come back as we were expecting. Okay.
Right.
So that's a star next to Stephen Moore's name, right, Brian?
Right.
Okay. So now you know the solution to it. You know what our intention is. I'll send you this link on the video so you can watch it. It isn't matching exactly what we have in mind because we have a single unit and they have like a 5-gang unit, but it still interject air. This base plate that they have, it's actually served as a manifold that distributes this air throughout this all 5 unit, right?
All right.
So our will be a single, airline underneath of the adaptive plate. So it'll drive this one unit at the moment that we're talking about here. And when we do it this way, right now the scope of your work will not allow you to do the 9x20 pallet because it needs two receivers to do the big one. But that doesn't mean that later on you couldn't modify it to do it, because this will allow you to do that. I want you to know that ahead of time, okay?
Yeah, gotcha.
And the videos here, it shows you everything. I won't play the video in the interest of time. I'll send you the link. You'll see exactly how things get, put in place when the robot does this. Okay?
Yep.
All right, go back to the slide deck. All right, let's talk money. Okay, let's talk about it. Are you clear up to this point? The hardware, the solution provided to you in front of everything. Good. Now let's see how poor we are when it comes to the system, right? So when it comes to an ROI, it's really narrowed down to shift count, and shift count equal to cycle time and part density. Agree? So looking at some of your drawing, it looks like you started from billet. You're gonna profile everything out. So let's say we use 24 minutes as your average cycle time. Would that be a fair statement to make?
Yeah, I'd say you could say that, maybe a little bit longer. Some of our cycle times, I mean, I'll be honest with you, we've gotten better. I mean, some of like my guys that I got out here programming have gotten better. I've gotten better over the years, and we're constantly revamping our programs and taking cycle time out. So so I'd say, probably 30 minutes is probably about where we're at now.
Okay. So for me, it's a simple math. If I use 24 minutes cycle time, and if you're using a 6x6 environment, which is, the smaller size of our pallet, you're able to put 60 parts on there. And at 24 minute cycle time, you're able to run 3 shifts and go home.
Right.
Does that make sense? So this is what we mean by part density. There's 60 part at 24 minutes apart. You're going to be running 24 hours straight without any interruption.
Right.
Right. So that's simple math. If you were to use a 6x9 pallet, which is only 2 per shelf, you can only obtain 40 parts. At 24 minutes apart, you're going to be running 16 hours, which is 2 shifts, right? And then on a one big one, because you can only load 20 of these parts, you're going to be running about 8 hours. But keep in mind, this is one part. If you put this is a 9x20 and your part is like 2x2 square, you could put like 8 part, and then that'll be a crazy amount you can put through. So you get this part right here, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Then here I put in there some HMI ROI based on the system cost, assumption, and all that other stuff. Now here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to use this because this is a flat screen. I'm going to use this spreadsheet because it's dynamic. And if I can do that, it'll give you some idea on where we at. Now we took this picture of Steve Lanahan, who is our sales guy, who typically sleep and put his leg up, and he's our motivator for designing this one. Okay. So let me ask you this, Brian, in your neck of the wood, is $28 an hour is the kind of person that would parallel to what attending is? or you would say about $30 or $32?
Yeah, somewhere between 28 and 32, I'd say. If you any more, if you want somebody that knows what they're doing, that's what you're gonna
Sure.
pay.
Right. So we use 28. Let's set the bar low, just so we can see what the ROI look like. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Let's do 28. Well, what is the overcost burden? Now, keep in mind, at Lindex Niken, we run around 42. Why? Because we got some really long people who've been around with us over 10 years. So the burden changes because of the vacation time is longer and all the other stuff. But I use 35. But you know, you and I both know that this is a moving target, right? Because it's 35 this year. Next year, the insurance go up, it's going to be something else. We know that's
Right.
going to be the one. But for the sake of this conversation, we put 35, okay? We put in there 52 weeks, 40 hours a week. That's fair, right?
Yep.
Sharp rate, I put 120 because typical before COVID, it was around 75 to 100 on a 40 by 20 machine. But you're looking at a 5-axis machine. And with today inflation, would you say 120 is a number or higher or lower?
Yeah, we're right there, 120, 125.
Cool. Okay. Now, next question, machine productivity. Now, if you ask the shop owner today, how efficient is their spindle utilization? No one really knows, to be honest with you.
Right.
Some guess it out, some, because we don't have a smart factory. Oh, by the way, I'm going to sell you that next once you get the system.
That's fine too.
Well, you got to be, you got to be able to measure all that, Brian. It's a shame we don't know how efficient is our machinery, is it? Right?
No, you really don't.
Right. So here's what I'm doing. I use 60% if you're lucky. Now, during the trade show, we query a lot of people to design this, and most of them say anywhere around 50% they're happy if they're lucky. So I'm going to use 60. Okay. Why is that important? Because the other 40% goes into the burden. Because you're supposed to get 100, but you're only getting 60, so that goes into the inefficiency level. The flip side. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it costs you to have an operator who is inefficient. I guess that's the word to phrase it.
Right.
Whereas the robot is not inefficient. They always running. Okay.
So Tom, I'm gonna interject here because a lot of times there are emotions when you say, hey, Frank over there is inefficient. But there are other things that attribute to your machine productivity, machine setup, right? If that guy is taking a vise out, putting a different vise on, or changing out your work holding, that also contributes. Rapid movements. Anytime you're not cutting, you are hurting your machine productivity, right? So it's not just the operator. It's just that the operator and machine setup tend to grab the most amount of time. So it's easier to talk about.
Right.
Okay. So now that we have this assumption put in, we have a list price for the tender. Don't fall off the chair. It's just a list price. You have something in mind already that we want to be able to work with you on. We have to talk about that in a minute. So here's the baseline system. So here's the one that I have few installed. Every one of them needs an installation. Someone to go out, level it, install it, bolt it down, everything that needs to do to talk to the machine, right? Then you have logistic, which is mainly shipping, the crate, logistic, just that. In your case, you have an Anagram tooling to unleash because you don't have rotary joint. It comes in at a rough tag of 16.9, okay?
Right.
And then auto door, I leave that open because it could be from you, it could be from us. If it's from us, I ballpark it around 14.7, okay? That's the door, the installation, and everything. Now, based on these assumptions, okay, if you were to purchase this, it will take you 0.7, less than a year to get your money back based on employee running 2 shifts. Does that make sense right there?
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, robot never run 1 shift. You always load it up and go home. So it's always 2 shifts. Okay. So that's what we always can. Now, at minimum, I can go 1.5. Let's just use that as a simple math here. It's going to come up to 0.9. So which is closer to a year, right? So you can change this. I'll send this over to you so you can start playing with the numbers and everything else and kind of give you a calculator. Okay.
Right.
And this is competing against 2 employees running first and second shift at 60% efficiency. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Here's what I like. I like the lease. because this assuming that you deposit and you pay for it and you get your money back less than a year, and then whatever year after that, you pocket all the money. You don't have to worry about the burden rising. You don't have to worry about, let's say this thing lasts 5 years. Your burden is not going to stay at 35.
Right.
Right? Your salary is not going to stay at 28. So the same operator that you hire today, 5 years from now, he's going to be at 35. His
Right.
burden is going to be at 40%. You get where I'm coming with the math here.
Yep.
Right? So that's what we calculating against. Let me go back to this math so you can see. So at bare minimum starting point, you're already looking at less than a year to get your money back. If you were to lease this, and I use a 0.03, which is around 8%. If I use a point, I think it's 0.02, if I'm not mistaken. Oops. I don't know how this calculate out, but it usually a 0.02 is around 6%. Okay, which is somewhere around today's lease. 0.03 is 8%. So if you were to lease any of the system above, this is how much you pay a month versus paying 2 employees on 2 shifts. So this is a monthly saving immediately.
Right.
Right? That's an immediate monthly saving. Now, for me, I would go this route all day long because you realize it by month. This, you realize it by year. Right? You pay 7 months worth of it and you're done. Now you own it. It's depending on how you want to do the math for yourself.
Right.
Okay, so that give you a clear cut on this sheet. Yes, how it works?
Yep.
Okay, I want to send this over to you as well. Now, let's talk about your specific situation. Talking to Matt, he said, hey, you know what? Brian has a little target of 200 somewhere in his in the neck of the wood for the system itself. So we put in there Lindex, Nick can provide, and we put in there option. Option means things that we normally don't get involved in because that's not our end of the deal. But because you need to have this system, the unleash system, because you don't have a Rody joint, this is specific to your Mazak. You
Right.
need an auto door. You're going to need some work holding. So all that becomes a different story. So right now, the tender itself, within the tender itself, we're going to knock it down from 220 to 179 under one condition, that if this thing go into your facility, you're going to let us use you as a case, like say something nice. We're bribing you to be nice.
Right.
Right.
Right. Well, and that's kind of, in doing this, that would be my goal, is to, be a small shop that becomes innovative and grows and continues with this exact platform. Like, when the next machine tool comes in, partner with you guys and say, hey, all right, this is the type of machine we want to get for the type of work we're going to do, and get the robot and the machine all installed in one shot.
For sure.
That
sure.
would,
Because here's the thing. Our funny comment is robots should make baby. If we fail to put in the second unit, then we fail you completely. We should never. First one is only as a trial. You should have at least 4 or 5 of these in a row, because nobody wants to grow with second shift and third shift with human. I used to work third shift when I was in college, and I can tell you, I break every damn thing that existed, and I just set it aside and let the first shift guy take over. I just get out of Dodge.
Right. That's exactly how it goes.
And you think 60% is nice for the first shift? Wait till you see second shift and third shift productivity. It's just terrible.
Well,
I
and
was
what do
there,
you
I
want to
know.
do? You want to grow with a burden, or do you want to grow with your efficiencies? And I believe it's I think I heard it at one of the trade shows. Fanuc has 1 human to every 17 robots in their manufacturing facilities, and that's really a good place to set your focus. Is while you grow in the technology, to also grow in the culture of figuring out how to make your employees' lives better, make your shop more efficient. We're not trying to replace people, but we are trying to increase your productivity.
Right.
So definitely more robots should definitely have babies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's not replacing people. It's the fact that no one wants to enter the manufacturing field. That's just the way it is. the average age of operator, Brian, can you take a guess in the shop manufacturing? What the average age of operator in the shop?
I would say it's probably getting to be probably 45, 50 years old at this point.
You hit the nail on the head, dude. It's 49 years old. Average age.
Well, I look at the guys. I mean, I know where I'm at, and I
Right.
got my youngest guy is 24, and I think my oldest guy out here is 56, and I think the next guy is around probably in his 40s.
For sure.
So yeah, it's
Yeah, you're gonna face the challenge, and I'm excited to present this to you because I think that with what we're doing here, we're shifting some of the money that we expected in the sale of this product and to go down to this price. We're gonna charge some of it towards marketing, and that's the deal I want to cut with you because we need a user in certain regions. So customer, of course, we don't want any Joe Schmoes to come to your shop and just poke around, look at things. You have to qualify and make sure they are the right people that you don't have any conflict with. But if it works well, we would love to hear it from you as a testimonial, because I believe people are peers to peers influence, not salesmen to influence, right?
right. I mean, I would love for this to be like the shop that, you know, people in the area are going, hey, you see what they're doing over there
For sure.
in a small shop like that, you know, imagine what they're going to be like 10 years from now. You know,
Right.
that's where I'd like to see this place be.
I tell you an interesting story. Steve, go ahead.
The interesting thing is, you know, a shop of your size, efficiency is so much more important than a large shop where it's kind of masked and hidden. You're trying to cut your teeth and develop business and grow. So for you, it's way more important to survive, to make more money, to be more efficient, so you have the ability and capital to grow.
Right.
You know, many shops are like, oh, I'm a small guy, I can't afford it. And sometimes my thought is, you're so small, you can't afford. You have the opportunity to start now
Right.
and develop and grow, you know, using the latest technologies. So sorry, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, the only downside is I wasn't here to pick out all the machines that they've put in place. You know, if that was the case, you know, we'd probably be farther along down the line doing exactly what we're doing right now.
But it's never too late to reevaluate and, you know, do what we need to do, right? So
Right.
I tell you, this system, when we built it, was meant to be in front of a 5-axis machine, because we know a typical 5-axis machine will have a cycle time between 30 to 40 minutes easily. And and the shop rate, I mean, the hour rate on that machine is higher. You guys got the right piece of equipment for what we're selling here. And one thing you have to keep in mind, a couple of my guys that I went to visit a user, and I go, why are you investing in a 5-axis machine? He go, well, beyond the setup time. My customer, I want my vendor to know that I'm 5-axis capable, because when they select vendors, if I'm in the 5-axis capable, I look good. And so many of them put a robot in front of the door, so that when the vendor come and audit them to look at more work throughput, they see a robot, they're going to give you more work. They know you have your efficiency down. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's something that is, you know, most people don't see until they kind of understand it. So enough of the sales pitch. That's your number there. And then this is your number for all the accessory that if we were to move it over to our burden, we would have to add that in there. Okay.
Right.
So you at 229, which is a really, in our mind, is a reasonable price, not far from where you have your mind settled in, right?
Right.
You know, just right amount for me to send 2 kids to college and finish 1 year and go home. But it's also good for you as well.
Right.
Okay. So just to be sure, the below is not including, okay? Not including below. It's the pallet top tooling. This can be as expensive as you want, as cheap as you want. I mean, we have gone into helping customer, and I'm going to move this over here really quick, if you don't mind. I have it in here somewhere. So some of the system that we dealt with are these folks here, all familiar name, I'm sure, once you see it, right? And people like this can be put on the pallet. I'm sure you've seen some of these. Dovetail clamping.
Yep.
Cell center vise, right? Something like this. You see that?
We use a lot of 5-axis stuff right now.
Hey, go down a slide, Tom. So there's that little pyramid 5-axis tombstone there. So I know we talk about pallets, but you can still get creative. We give you an envelope you need to fit inside, and that's about as general and specific as we need to be. If you wanted to build a 4-sided tombstone or a 3-sided tombstone to put your parts on to get more density out of one spot, that's all. You're not limited to, all I'm trying to say is you're not limited to an 1.5 inch thick 6x6 pallet. If you want to grow in 3D, we can grow in 3D. It just becomes a programming. You have to program it that way. That's all.
So theoretically, Stephen, he could bolt this pyramid right onto one of the 6x6 pallets
Correct.
and utilize it that way. As long as
Hell,
it fits. Go ahead.
Steven, Steve, his pallet can be the tombstone,
Sure.
right?
Right.
That
Yeah.
don't make a pallet, make a tombstone. That's the way to go, right? And then imagine this was the pallet, and then there's 5 sides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts on each one of these surface. That's the way I think you should consider it. And I would tell you the reason why we went with the pallet is because you could actually QR these pallet and designate it to a part, so that when the part comes, you just put the work piece on there and go, right? Sometimes people actually cut a notch in the pallet to put a probe next to it to call out the program. If you put a distinct, let's say, physical datum or marker, right? You can literally have your probe come in, touch that area, and say, oh, that's the program I want to call in. You get what I'm coming from, Brian. So there's a lot of things you can do.
Right.
You know. But minimally, you can put a QR and have a reader read it, right? So this is what I'm talking about for you. Some of your parts can sit onto like a Mighty Bite or a blow profile clamp. This is what we make on our manufacturing plants, like a pallet like that, and then we have that up there. See that?
Yeah.
So doing the pallet give you a lot of flexibility. See the gang tooling there? Low
Yep.
profile gang tooling. So I think you already know where we're coming from with this. This is very clear.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. I think that's probably one of the reasons why it interests you the most. This is more in line with what you're doing to some
Right.
extent. There. And some of these hinges, 90-degree angle that you have to profile out of it.
Right.
Now, if you had gone to the Okuma machine, we would have suggested you to get a rotary table with a trunnion and put 2-part like this. Right? But since you went with a 5-axis, it's a single part, but it's a 30, 40-minute cycle. Okay.
Yeah, but we could do the Akuma next.
Slow down, man. No,
Or-
just kidding.
Or we can do a whole Akuma 5-axis machine with a robot all together in one package.
Yeah, you can do that. The only problem is, like, the reason why we do our on the side like this is, one thing we learned, that when you buy a system that belongs to the OEM, any expansion you have, any redeployable, have to be on the same equipment, because the language, the software is matching to their logic. Here,
Right.
the word redeployable means Okuma, Mazak, Mori, whatever the heck you buy tomorrow that you don't want to put on the Mazak anymore, you move it over there. There's no language issue, right? It's 2 independent system that is handshake by an interface. So that's the advantage. Okay, so the rest of these really talk about the NFRM toolings and stuff like that. So if you want to dive deeper into this, all that is available to you when I send this over to you.
All right.
Sounds okay, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any question you have for? Oh, by the way, are you familiar with how this thing get programmed?
I watched a couple of the videos on YouTube, and
Yeah.
I mean, the guy, he made it seem pretty simple. You just kind of tell it what shelf and what side, and it just does the rest.
Exactly. It's a 3-step, right? This is the home screen. This is the pick and place environment. You tell them where you want to pick. I know it's hard to see this image, but you pick from 1 point, 2 point, or 3 point, and then you deliver. And then you tell which side you want to be on. So you have 4 sides, A, B, C, and D, correct?
Right.
A, B, C, and D. You can literally say, I want A only, I want B only, or I want A and B. You can turn on and off any one of these sides. You can also turn on and off any one of these shelves. Because if you have a bit taller workpiece and you say, you know what, 5.5 inches is not tall enough, I'm going to remove every other shelf so I can probably put like a pyramid on there, like the way that he's showing there up here, that parts.
Right.
You can literally take off the number 4 shelf and the number 2 shelf, and you're
And
ready
then-
to rock and roll that way.
Right.
So it's very easy, very intuitive, very simple to use. Okay.
Yep.
So I'll send you this over. I don't know how well these links will work because this coming off of the YouTube, and it's probably the same video you watch how to program it. And then some of these other video, I don't know how you're gonna follow through, but I hope it'll work. I will send it to you in the hope that it will run.
Gotcha.
Let's see if it does. Let's see if it does here. Can you see it?
Yep. It's
Here you
just
go.
popped up.
Now this is a cool system, and I'm not going to take any more of your time after this. But this allows you to do 5-axis machining on a 3-axis machine, 4-axis table.
5-axis positional.
Right, position.
Right.
Plus 45 minus 45.
Indexed at 90 degrees. Get the
Oh,
other two sides.
Gotcha.
You see the word up 10 now? It's at 90 degree.
Yep.
To the x-axis.
Good for valve bodies and things like that. It's a nice way to reduce those ops and how many times you have to touch these parts.
Right.
One other thing, Tom, if you can pull up that Excel sheet again. I
Which one you
believe,
want?
yep, there you go. The not included below, obviously you're going to work with Matt on getting your pallets, but we will need to get the robot interface and the auto door interface from Mazak. And that
All
allows us to do all of the confirmations of, door open, door closed, machines ready to run, all that kind of stuff. Those two interfaces is what allows us to talk to your machine. And those are the two big things that we have to be able to communicate and understand is, number one, where is the door? And then number two, what state is the machine in? And that's what those two features get us.
Right.
If we don't have that, we can build it out, but realistically, it's probably, $10,000, $12,000 in sensors that we have to come in and program and install on your equipment just so we can have that kind of information.
Right.
I think Matt showed me the price they charge you for these two option here. It's very good price for the complete handshake, and you want it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. All right. So that's the end of our presentation. Do you have any question, Brian, to give us, or what's your feel on this
No,
at this moment?
I like it. I mean, like I said, I'll be honest, I was kind of skeptical on how you guys were going to do the, without having the air through the table. And when I saw that, I was like, that's clever. It works.
Yeah. I tell you, one of the things that it's important to us, and if I may do a little bit of a sales pitch to you, it's that it's important that customer like yours get full information, because it's a leap of faith, right? And then
Right.
the other part of that is we don't want to sell you one system. It's no good to us to do that. And able to sell you the second and third, we have to find the right solution. But more importantly, we have to service you correctly, because if we don't do that, we won't earn your business. And that's why we couple with Infinity. They are our integrator. They are our robot specialist. You run the issue, they give you a call. I'll give them a call. They'll take care of it. This is their system behind the scene. And, we work with this in conjunction. So I think you're going to be very happy with what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Let us know your time frame on this, Brian. What's your thought after this meeting? What's your time frame on this?
As far as what? As far as actually purchasing it and getting it installed?
Yeah, yeah.
It, as long as Rich is all right with it, it'd probably be pretty quick. Like I said, it's his initial, when he said, 200, he said he would cut a PO and wire money the next day. So, obviously it's a little bit more money, but, we're also getting a lot more with that too. So,
Correct. Correct.
yeah, I feel like there's a lot more there than our initial discussion was. So,
And that's typically one of the reasons why we draw the line so that you can see what the baseline looked like in terms of our end and your end. But as things start to shift towards us a little bit more, first off, we're happy that we found a solution for you, but it means the burden becomes total. So I think in the totality of things, with the ROI you saw in front of you even at the list price, not even talking about this included everything here, the ROI is definitely there, isn't it? So.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, then the reliability of not having to count on somebody showing up every day.
Oh man, no, you're not kidding about that.
Because I show up every day. Somebody will load that machine. I can load the cabinet just as much as anybody else here can. So.
I'll tell you what, let's put some action plan together, okay? So first off, I think you're comfortable with our presentation. So I'm going to send you over everything I presented to you in case you have a team that need to discuss this. So you have everything in front of you. Okay. So I'm going to send you the slide deck, and it's going to be done by WeTransfer because it's kind of heavy. So when you see a WeTransfer, know that it's from us. Okay. And inside there'll be this PowerPoint. There'll be the ROI spreadsheet, and then there'll be the final spreadsheet that we just showed you a minute ago. Okay.
All right.
All right. And then once we send you that, what would be a good time to follow up with you on, like, hey, do you think we have a movement here?
Probably maybe the end of next week.
Sure. Okay.
Because I'm actually getting ready for I've got a busy couple of months here. I'm getting ready for AS9100 audits and stuff like that. So I've got a lot on my plate right now.
No worry. I just want to make sure that we don't want to overburden you with follow-up, but we don't want to keep you away either. So I want to make sure that we have this conversation, right?
Well, I'll be honest with you. So Rich he's been bugging me if I've heard anything back from you guys for, the last couple of weeks. So he'll be interested to see the presentation.
Cool. All right. So we'll get that to you. Now there's a lot of third party involved, so delivery could be a big issue here, right? Because we have the unit, but they're also the door, the Mazak size, so all the star need to align, and we only as good as the last guy that shows up with the longest delivery time, right?
So that's gonna be Mazak. We know that already.
So we'll put that in there. Now, everything we've done based on an estimate. Now, typically, we would put some kind of a margin of error in the price. I don't want to do that, but we don't want to overinvest engineering if we don't have a sense of, the percentage of this will move forward, because then we just kill ourselves with engineering time and not a walk away. If you have to put this in the purchase percentile, where will you put that in after this presentation, do you think?
I'd say it's a pretty good possibility. Like I said, I think Rich is really he likes the idea of being able to run multiple shifts, and the hardest thing with running multiple shifts is actually having reliable people. Like Absolutely. Right now, I couldn't hire enough people to run a second shift. There's not enough skilled people out there right now. They're out there, but they're a lot more expensive than a small shop can afford. It's easier for me to afford the robot than it is to afford, what a lot of these guys what they want for a wage.
Yeah, I agree with you. Even if they apply in the first place.
Right. Yeah, if you can get them, because a lot of them it's a tough market out there.
For sure. So Brian, here's what we're gonna do. With that being said by you, we're gonna go ahead and let Stephen finish up the drawing and the model on the Unleashed side of it, because everything is conceptual for this conversation. We didn't want to advance the tie down into an actual production print and everything else. without having this conversation. So now that we feel pretty good about it, Stephen will continue to work on that solution because I think that's the key to everything here, the connectivity and the work holding, right?
Right.
And then I think after that, just a matter of you defining the term of the purchase. What would you say between the purchase and lease? What would you lean towards if you have to say something today?
Like, I know Rich is not big on leasing. He likes to just buy things outright.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that would be more likely what he would do. I don't think he would lease or even take out a bank note on it. He would just hire the money and have you guys start putting it in.
Okay. All right. Anybody else any question from the interface side of the team, which is IR Infinity, and then Stephen and Steve, you got any question, or Matt for Brian? I'm gonna close out my session and let you guys handle it.
No, Brian, this is Dave with Infinity Robotics. It looks like a very sound system. We're excited about this for you. You're going to be thrilled.
Yeah, I like it.
Anybody else on the anything with Brian while we got him on here? All right, Brian,
Thanks for
first
your
form.
patience and thanks for your time.
Yeah,
no
appreciate
problem.
the opportunity. So.
Good deal.
Appreciate it, brother. And
Thank
Brian,
y'all.
next time if we are good looking enough, we turn on our screen. Most of us have the face for radio, so I think I don't blame them for not doing it. I wouldn't do it either myself.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
All right.
Thank you, Brian.
Have
Thanks,
a good
Matt.
evening.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
You too.
Thanks for 8-track.
Appreciate it. Bye bye.
Thanks.